Radzik stood at the edge of Earth's atmosphere, inside his camouflage scout ship. The planet below looked quiet. Green and blue, peaceful, soft. He clicked his mandibles and gave a low growl. "This is the threat the High Council fears," he muttered. He had been trained for war his whole life. As a Droxan, he came from a race known for strength, speed, and psychic control. They had crushed civilizations in days. Their warriors could stop a tank with their bare hands. To him, humans were nothing. Weak, slow, divided. They didn't even have working space fleets. Most of their weapons were old and simple. Still, orders were orders. He activated his ship's stealth mode and entered the atmosphere, gliding silently over cities. Lights blinked below. Cars moved. People laughed, danced, fought. Radzik watched through zoom lenses, recording everything. For 5 days, he traveled from one human nation to another. He saw their leaders, their soldiers, their scientists. Nothing impressed him. He sent reports to his command. Humans are not a threat. Their bodies are fragile. Their minds are dull. Their weapons are outdated. But something still bothered him. Earth had survived multiple galactic surveys. Other empires had scanned the planet and ignored it. But this year, a strange energy signal had appeared. It came from Earth, but it didn't match human tech. It had the same pattern as an ancient Droxan artifact, one thought lost forever. So Radzik stayed to investigate. One night, while hovering above a dense forest in Alaska, he picked up a signal from a hidden Droxan strike squad. They were not supposed to be there. He listened in. Target has moved north. Solo extraction begins now. The voice was sharp. These weren't scouts. They were hunters. Droxan assassins. Their target, a human scientist named Dr. Elsar Vance. Unknown to humans, Dr. Vance once worked on something called Project Emberlight. Most records were destroyed years ago. But someone in Droxan Command still wanted him dead. Radzik was curious now. He left his ship cloaked above the forest and followed the squad on foot. His armor changed color to match the trees. His steps were silent. No human could hear him. For over 2 hours, he tracked the squad as they moved through snow and silence. Then, he heard screaming. It came from ahead. He rushed forward, claws ready. He expected a human ambush, maybe soldiers, maybe traps. But what he found was far worse. The Droxan squad, elite killers, were all dead. Their bodies were scattered across the clearing. Crushed, melted, burned. One of them had his helmet torn in half. Another had been thrown into a tree so hard the bark was red with blood. And in the middle of it all stood a man. He was unarmed. No armor, just a black coat and torn boots. He looked human, but his eyes glowed faint blue. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there, staring at Radzik. For the first time in years, Radzik felt fear. He activated his cloaking field and stepped back into the trees. The human didn't follow, didn't even look away, just stared at the spot where Radzik had stood, like he could still see him. Radzik returned to his ship and flew away fast. He didn't file a report that night. Instead, he locked himself inside the ship's data room and reviewed the footage. Frame by frame, he studied the human's face, the way his hands had lifted during the fight, the moment when one Droxan's body had lifted into the air, without being touched, and exploded. No weapon detected, the scanner said. No tech found. The armor log confirmed. Then what caused it? Radzik couldn't understand. Humans didn't have that kind of power. They weren't psychic. They didn't control energy. Unless they were hiding something. He searched again for files about Dr. Vance. Most were gone, deleted from global networks. But deep in a military backup system, he found a red-marked document. Pro-GCTEMBERLIJHE, Tiraminate. He opened it. The file was damaged. Half the text was gone, But he saw words that chilled him. Genetic mutation, exposure to unknown cosmic energy. Subjects show signs of reality distortion. One video played. A young human stood inside a metal room. Wires were attached to his skin. A soldier gave the order. The human's eyes glowed, just like the man in the forest. Then the entire room bent inward like paper. The walls melted. Cameras shut down. Ravzek leaned back. He finally understood. Humans weren't weak. They were dangerous. But they didn't act like it. They hid their power, buried their past, even destroyed their own programs. Why? Was it fear? Or control? He looked again at the man in the forest. The blue eyes. The way he had let Ravzek escape. It wasn't a mistake. It was a message. The humans knew Ravzek was watching, and they let him live. Ravzek's claws tapped against the screen. He had been wrong about Earth. Very wrong. Now he had to decide, return to command and tell them the truth, or keep the secret. Because if the Droxans attacked Earth now, Ravzek couldn't shake the image of the human with glowing blue eyes. He had expected fear. He had expected the human to run, or to beg for mercy. But instead, the man had stood tall, unarmed, and looked at Ravzek like he already knew everything. Ravzek couldn't stop thinking about it. He had made his way back to the Droxan command station on a nearby moon, but even in the silence of his private quarters, the memory haunted him. Why hadn't the human killed him? Why had he let him leave? He turned his attention back to the data he had collected. After hours of reviewing the footage and reports, Ravzek found a strange pattern. Humans, on the surface, appeared weak, but their ancient history told a different story. Wars, disasters, near extinction. Yet they survived. How? The more he searched, the deeper the mystery seemed to go. Humans had been at war with themselves for thousands of years. But there was something else, something buried deeper. And somehow, Ravzek had discovered it. But how much did they really know about it? How much had they hidden? And why? After another sleepless night, Ravzek made his decision. He had to know more. He couldn't just report back to the Droxan High Command without understanding the full picture. There was too much at stake. This was no longer just about Earth. It was about the Droxans' future. He decided to go back to the forest. There, he hoped to find answers that would explain everything. Ravzek's ship landed quietly in the same clearing where the human scientist had killed the Droxan squad. The forest was still. Cold winds whispered through the trees, the snow crunching beneath his boots. He scanned the area carefully. There were no signs of the human, no bodies, no traces of energy that he could detect. Everything was silent, like the man had never been there at all. But Ravzek knew better. He could feel the presence of something just beneath the surface, watching. His eyes narrowed as he stepped forward, moving cautiously. The area seemed too peaceful, too still. But as he reached the center of the clearing, he found something strange, a small, faintly glowing device buried in the snow. It wasn't human. He could tell. The shape was unfamiliar, and its energy signature was unlike anything he had ever encountered. He reached down, careful not to disturb the surrounding snow, and picked it up. The device hummed lightly in his hand, and Ravzek could feel something almost alive within it. He studied it closely. The glowing lines seemed to pulse, sending out faint waves of energy that he could barely understand. "This isn't human," Ravzek whispered to himself. He carefully placed it into a storage compartment in his armor, then continued his search. But as he moved deeper into the forest, something unexpected happened. He felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. It was a sensation he had never experienced before, an overwhelming sense of being watched. Suddenly, a low voice echoed through the trees. "You should have stayed away." Ravzek froze. His heart pounded as he spun around. There, standing in the shadows of the trees, was the same man he had seen earlier, the one who had destroyed the Droxan squad. His eyes were glowing brighter now, his expression calm, as if he had been waiting for Ravzik. Ravzik's weapon systems immediately activated, but the human didn't seem bothered. He stood motionless, his eyes locked onto Ravzik's. The air around them seemed to crackle with energy. "Why?" Ravzik demanded, his voice shaking slightly. "Why didn't you kill me? Why are you hiding this power?" The human smiled faintly. "Because you wouldn't believe me if I told you." Ravzik's grip on his weapon tightened. "Tell me then. Explain." The human stepped forward, closing the distance. His glowing eyes seemed to pierce into Ravzik's very soul. "We weren't always like this. We didn't always hide what we are. But over time we learned. We learned that power is dangerous. Power like this," he waved his hand, and the air shimmered for a moment, "can destroy everything." Ravzik felt a cold shiver run through him. "You think you can control it?" he asked, his voice low and full of doubt. The man nodded slowly. "Not control. Understand. But there are others who seek to use it, to make us into weapons. If you want to destroy us, you'll have to fight more than humans." Ravzik stared at him, trying to make sense of the words. He had no idea who this man really was, or what he truly wanted. But one thing was clear: the humans were hiding far more than anyone knew. Before Ravzik could respond, the man spoke again. "You should leave now, Ravzik. You have no idea what you're up against." And with that, he vanished into the shadows, leaving Ravzik standing alone, heart racing. Ravzik didn't waste any time. He had learned enough. The Droxans had underestimated the humans. And now he understood why the High Command had been so focused on Earth. The humans weren't just survivors. They were something else. Something more dangerous than the Droxans had ever anticipated. And Ravzik had just discovered the tip of the iceberg. He knew now that he had to warn his people. The Droxans had made a terrible mistake. It wasn't just the humans they had to worry about. There were far darker forces at play. As Ravzik activated his ship's engines and flew away from the forest, a new understanding dawned on him. The coming conflict would be nothing like the Droxans had ever faced, because the power hidden among humanity wasn't just about survival. It was about something much, much worse. Ravzik spent the next several hours in his ship, staring out into the blackness of space. His mind raced as he tried to process everything he had seen, everything he had learned. The human, the one who had destroyed the Droxan squad, had spoken of something far greater than mere power. He had mentioned others, forces lurking beneath the surface, waiting to be unleashed. As Ravzik passed through Earth's atmosphere, the calm of the stars seemed to mock him. He should have been reporting back to the High Command, but instead, his thoughts were consumed with the truth about humanity. Something was happening on Earth, and it was far worse than he could have imagined. Back at his base, he reviewed the data once again. He found the same pattern: hidden files, coded messages, human technology that seemed too advanced for their time. Ravzik's instincts told him that the humans were not just hiding their power, they were controlling it. And whatever they were controlling, it wasn't just about weapons or war. It was something far more dangerous. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft ping from his console. It was a message, encrypted. The sender was anonymous, but the encryption signature matched human technology. He hesitated for a moment, then opened the message. "If you're reading this, it means you're already in over your head. They know you're coming. They know you're watching. But you can't stop them. The Emberlight Protocol isn't just a program. It's a part of us. You can't fight it. You can't win." Ravzik's heart skipped a beat. Emberlight. He had seen the name before in the human files, but this message confirmed it. Emberlight wasn't just some experiment. It was a weapon, and it wasn't human. The message continued. "They've been waiting for this moment. They're waiting for you to try and stop them. But you can't. Not alone. Not with what you know now. If you want to survive, you need to understand. Find the others. Find the ones who survived. They're the key to stopping this, if it's even possible." The message ended abruptly. leaving Ravzek with more questions than answers. Who had sent this? And what did they mean by the others? His mind began to piece together fragments of information. The strange energy signature, the glowing eyes, the human who had let him live. It was all connected. But how? Ravzek's ship buzzed as it began to approach the nearest human city, a sprawling metropolis that, according to his scans, had once been the location of one of the Emberlight facilities. He had to go there. He had to find the truth. The city stretched beneath him like a labyrinth of glass and steel. It was silent, almost too quiet. Ravzek's ship descended slowly, blending into the shadows of the towering skyscrapers. He landed on the outskirts, near an abandoned industrial complex that had been marked as a former Emberlight research site. As he stepped out of the ship, he felt the weight of the air around him. The energy in the atmosphere was different here, heavier, as though something was pulling at the fabric of reality itself. It wasn't just the site he had landed on. It was the whole city. The power was palpable. Ravzek made his way into the complex, using the shadows to remain unseen. His scanners had picked up unusual readings, something alive beneath the surface. He moved deeper into the building, past crumbling walls and rusted machinery, until he came to a massive vault door. The lock was complex, but Ravzek's Droxin tech made short work of it. Inside, the air smelled stale and cold. The walls were covered in ancient symbols and markings, and in the center of the room stood a large machine, its purpose unclear, but it hummed with strange energy. He approached cautiously, scanning the machine's energy output. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a voice. Not the smartest move. Stranger. Ravzek spun around, his claws instantly ready. From the shadows stepped a figure, a human. But not just any human. The man's eyes glowed with that same eerie blue light. "I told you to leave," the man said, his voice calm but firm. "You don't belong here." Ravzek studied him carefully. This wasn't the same man he had encountered in the forest, but there was something familiar about him. He had the same strange presence, the same energy radiating from him. "I'm not here to fight," Ravzek said, his voice steady. "I need answers. What is Emberlight? What is it really?" The man's eyes narrowed, and he stepped closer, his movements almost fluid. "Emberlight was never meant to be understood by the likes of you." Ravzek took a step forward, undeterred. "Then explain it to me. I've seen enough to know it's not just a weapon. What are you hiding?" The human sighed and shook his head. "You don't get it. Emberlight isn't just a program. It's part of us. It's inside every human alive. Every human with the potential to evolve beyond what they were ever meant to be. It's not a weapon. It's a force." Ravzek's mind reeled. This was bigger than anything he had imagined. The Emberlight Protocol was more than just a genetic mutation. It was a transformation, a power embedded in humanity itself, waiting to be unlocked. "So what happens now?" Ravzek asked. "What do you want with me?" The man's expression softened, just slightly. "What we want isn't what you think, but you're already too deep in this. And there's no way out. You can't stop what's coming. The others will awaken soon. And when they do," he trailed off, his voice turning dark, "the galaxy will change forever." Ravzek felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine. He had known the stakes were high, but this was more than he had ever prepared for. Before he could respond, the man stepped back into the shadows, disappearing into the dark recesses of the complex. Ravzek didn't waste a moment. He knew he couldn't let the human vanish into the shadows without understanding more. He had to know everything about Emberlight, about the power hidden among humanity, before it was too late. His mind raced as he moved deeper into the abandoned complex. The strange energy from the machine was still palpable in the air, and the walls seemed to pulse with an unseen force. His senses were heightened, every sound amplified in the eerie silence of the building. He made his way toward the back of the room, where there was a large control panel. He could barely make out the symbols on it, ancient alien-looking characters. But he wasn't without his own resources. With a quick adjustment, Ravzik tapped into the panel, forcing it to translate. The words that appeared on the screen chilled him to the core. Emberlight activation sequence, final phase. He didn't need to understand the entire language to know that the final phase meant something catastrophic. Ravzik's claws dug into the edges of the console as he tried to break the code. But it was too late. The human had already anticipated his move. "Don't try to stop it," came the voice from behind him, calm yet carrying an undercurrent of warning. Ravzik spun around, his heart pounding. The man, the one who had revealed so much yet nothing at all, stood there, just as before. His glowing eyes were steady, watching Ravzik with a mix of pity and inevitability. "You're too late," the human said, taking a step closer. "The process has already begun." "What does that mean?" Ravzik demanded, his voice sharp with frustration. "What is Emberlight really? You said it was part of you. What are you trying to do with it?" The human's gaze softened, and for a moment, there was a strange sadness in his eyes. "You wouldn't understand. The Emberlight is humanity's last hope, and its greatest curse. We've been hiding from it, trying to control it. But it's bigger than all of us. It always has been." Ravzik clenched his fists. "You're not telling me everything." "I can't," the human replied, his voice quiet but firm. "It's too dangerous. If I tell you too much, you won't be able to comprehend it. But know this, Emberlight isn't a weapon. It's a transformation. Humanity was never meant to wield this kind of power. But now, it's too late to turn back." Ravzik's mind raced. He thought back to everything he had learned. The strange device in the forest, the hidden powers within humanity, the way the human had destroyed the Droxan squad with ease. There was no doubt in his mind now. Whatever was happening, humanity had already crossed a line that could not be undone. "Then why didn't you stop it?" Ravzik asked, his voice laced with disbelief. "If this is such a curse, why haven't you stopped it? Why let it grow?" The human's expression darkened. "We tried. But the Emberlight is more than just a power source. It's connected to something older, something buried deep within our DNA. It was never meant to be awakened, but it was. And now, it's out of control." Ravzik took a step back, his mind struggling to make sense of the chaos unfolding before him. "And what do you expect me to do? Stand by while your people destroy themselves?" The human's eyes flickered with something like regret. "I'm not asking you to save us. I'm asking you to understand. The Droxans have no idea what they're dealing with. If they try to conquer Earth, they'll be the ones who fall." Ravzik's instincts flared. "You think I should just leave? Let this happen?" The human shook his head slowly. "It's not that simple. You can't stop it with force. You can't stop Emberlight with weapons. You'll need something far more powerful. Something you won't even understand until it's too late." Ravzik's claws dug into the sides of his armor. This wasn't what he had expected when he set foot on Earth. He had expected a simple military operation. Wipe out a weaker species, claim their resources, and move on. But now, with everything he had seen, with everything he had learned, he realized he had stepped into something far beyond his understanding. "Then help me understand," Ravzik said through gritted teeth. "I need to know what's coming, so I can warn my people." The human sighed, looking as though the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. "There's no stopping what's coming. The Emberlight protocol is a chain reaction. When it activates fully, it will unlock the hidden potential within every human. And that power won't just stay here. It will spread to other species, to other worlds. And when that happens—" He paused, looking directly at Ravzik. "No one will be safe." A chill ran down Ravzik's spine. He had seen many wars, many civilizations rise and fall. But this was different. The humans weren't just surviving anymore. They were evolving. And once they evolved, there would be no stopping them. "Then I'll stop it myself," Ravzik said, determination in his voice. The human's eyes glowed brighter, almost pitying him. You can try. But if you do, you'll only speed up the process. The ember light will never be controlled. It will consume everything, including you." Before Radzig could respond, the human turned and vanished into the shadows once more, leaving Radzig alone in the dark, with nothing but the hum of the machine and the weight of the truth pressing down on him. Radzig stood there for a long moment, staring at the machine, the one that had been responsible for activating the Emberlight protocol. There was no going back now. The war had already started, but this was no ordinary conflict. This was the beginning of something far worse. Humanity was awakening, and no one, not the Droxans, not Radzig, and certainly not the galaxy, was prepared for what was coming next. Radzig couldn't shake the feeling that everything he thought he knew about war, about strategy, had been upended. What he had once considered a simple mission to conquer a primitive species had become something much larger, much more dangerous. Humanity was no longer a mere obstacle to overcome. They were evolving into something that defied comprehension. His ship hummed softly as he left the industrial complex behind, the once clear path now muddied with uncertainty. He had to warn the Droxan High Command, but a part of him knew that no warning could prepare them for the truth about humanity. They would never believe it. They would only see the threat, the rising power, and attack. The stars outside his window seemed distant, cold, and indifferent. Radzig had been a warrior for most of his life, and yet, for the first time, he felt like he was a mere pawn in a game he didn't understand. Emberlight wasn't just a weapon. It was a force of nature. It was humanity's hidden potential, waiting to break free, and it was spreading. Spreading in ways Radzig couldn't predict. Back in the Droxan shipyard, his superiors would demand answers. They would expect a victory, a quick, easy conquest, but the truth was too dangerous to deliver. The knowledge he now carried could destroy everything. His own people weren't ready for this. But then again, were they ever really ready? As Radzig's ship sped toward the Droxan fleet's location, a part of him considered turning back. Maybe there was another way. Maybe he didn't have to be the harbinger of doom for humanity. But as the vast space unfolded before him, he realized there was no turning back. The Emberlight process had already begun. The evolution had started. And if he didn't act quickly, humanity's transformation would become unstoppable. His scanners beeped suddenly, snapping him back to reality. He narrowed his eyes at the display. Something had changed. A sudden energy signature was coming from a nearby system. It was unlike anything he had seen before, a surge of power that seemed to be growing exponentially. It was coming from Earth. The realization hit him like a thunderclap. The human he had encountered in the abandoned complex, the one who had warned him, had mentioned the others, the ones who had survived the first phase. Radzig's heart raced. Had the Emberlight already spread that far? With no time to waste, Radzig adjusted his ship's trajectory and headed straight toward the new energy source. He had to get there first. If humanity had unlocked its potential, and the others were awakening, then it was a matter of survival for the entire galaxy. If the Droxans attacked now, they would be wiped out before they even reached the planet's surface. He reached the coordinates in less than an hour. What he saw was unlike anything he expected. There was no battle, no massive fleet assembling. Instead, Radzig found a small, hidden base, one buried deep beneath Earth's surface. The energy signature he had detected was coming from this underground facility, and it was pulsing with unnatural intensity. Radzig landed his ship in a concealed area near the entrance. The base appeared to be abandoned, but his scanners detected movement, humans, but not ordinary ones. The readings were inconsistent, fluctuating as though the very air around them was charged with the same energy he had witnessed at the complex. He stepped out of his ship and approached cautiously, keeping to the shadows. His mind raced, his thoughts racing with the same question. Had the Emberlight spread that far? Were these humans the others the first man had spoken of? As he crept closer to the entrance, he heard voices, hushed, urgent, but not quite human. There was something off about them, something that sent a chill down his spine. He slowed his pace, his senses heightened. Through a narrow crack in the entrance, he could see them. A group of humans, standing in a circle around a massive device, their eyes glowing with the same eerie blue light. But it wasn't just the eyes that were different. Their bodies seemed to shimmer with an unnatural energy, their movements almost mechanical. Radzik's breath caught in his throat. This was what he had feared. The Ember Light wasn't just transforming humanity. It was taking control of them. The others were no longer fully human. They had become something else entirely. One of the figures turned, as though sensing his presence. Radzik quickly ducked behind a nearby pillar, holding his breath. His heart pounded in his chest, but his mind remained sharp. He couldn't afford to be discovered. He had to understand what was happening here before it was too late. The human leader of the group stepped forward. His glowing eyes scanned the darkened area, his expression unreadable. Radzik watched carefully, trying to make out any clues as to what had happened. But the leader spoke, and the words sent a shiver through him. "Radzik," the human said, his voice cold and calculating. "We knew you would come." Radzik froze, his eyes widening in disbelief. How could they possibly know his name? "We are ready," the leader continued. "You can't stop it now. No one can." Radzik's mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. He had seen the transformation. He had felt the power. But this was different. These humans weren't fighting for survival anymore. They had embraced the power of Emberlight. And now, they were no longer just a species on the brink of destruction. They were a force to be reckoned with. The leader smiled, his eyes glowing brighter. "Join us, Radzik. Together, we can bring the galaxy to its knees." Radzik's claws clenched, his instincts screaming at him to attack, to stop whatever was happening before it was too late. But the truth was clear now. It wasn't about fighting back. The Emberlight had already begun to spread, and humanity had evolved far beyond anything Radzik had imagined. The time for resistance was over. Radzik's heart pounded as he stood hidden in the shadows, his mind racing. He had come to Earth with the mission to conquer, to subdue a primitive species. But now, humanity had become something far more dangerous than he could have imagined. The Emberlight had unlocked a power within them, one that was spreading, changing, and evolving with every passing moment. The human leader's words echoed in his mind. "Join us, Radzik. Together, we can bring the galaxy to its knees." The leader's voice had been calm, almost soothing, but there was no mistaking the danger in his eyes. These humans, these others, were no longer just a threat. They were a new force, one that Radzik couldn't fight with weapons or tactics. He stepped back, careful to stay out of sight. The group of transformed humans continued to circle the machine, their glowing eyes flickering with energy. Radzik didn't know what the device was, but he could feel its power radiating from here. Whatever it was amplifying their abilities, pushing humanity further into the realm of the unknown. The situation was spiraling out of control. Radzik had been sent to Earth with a singular goal: to wipe out humanity and claim the planet. But now, his entire mission had shifted. This wasn't a battle he could win with brute force. If the Droxans were to invade now, they would be obliterated. The Emberlight wasn't just a weapon. It was the next evolution of humanity. And no one, not even the mighty Droxans, could stand against it. Radzik's mind swirled with possibilities. He had to warn the Droxans, but could they understand the magnitude of what was happening here? If he told them everything, that humanity was no longer just a species, but a new, unstoppable force. Would they listen? Or would they continue with their invasion plans, blindly charging into a war they couldn't win? The human leader's voice cut through his thoughts again. "You don't understand, do you? The Emberlight isn't just about power. It's about freedom. Humanity has always been bound by limitations, but now we are free." Radzik clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the decision bearing down on him. He had no choice now. He couldn't let the Droxans invade Earth, Not with this new power awakening among humanity. It was no longer a matter of conquest. It was a matter of survival. For everyone. Suddenly, the leader's voice turned sharp, as if he had sensed Ravzek's presence once more. "You're still hiding, aren't you, Ravzek? You think you can stop this? You're too late." Ravzek knew he couldn't wait any longer. If the ember light truly had spread this far, then the time for subtlety was over. The leader was right. Ravzek had no chance of stopping it alone. But perhaps there was still a way to find a balance. Perhaps he could work with humanity, not as an invader, but as an ally. But first, he had to understand the full scope of what the Emberlight had done. Without another thought, Ravzek stepped into the open, revealing himself to the group of humans. The leader's glowing eyes immediately locked onto him, and for the first time, Ravzek saw a hint of recognition. "You're brave," the leader said, his voice now filled with amusement. "But you're also a fool. This isn't about survival anymore. It's about evolution. Humanity was never meant to be a puppet. The Emberlight is the key to our true destiny." Ravzek stood tall, trying to ignore the nagging sense of dread that continued to creep up his spine. "I didn't come here to be part of your evolution. I came here to conquer. But now, I see that I can't win this war." The leader smiled, and for the first time, Ravzek saw a flash of something more than just power in his eyes. "It's not about winning, Ravzek. It's about understanding. You're too blinded by your mission to see the truth. The Emberlight is the future of all sentient species. What's happening to humanity is just the beginning." Ravzek's mind raced. Was this truly what humanity had become? A species capable of reshaping the very fabric of the universe. The idea seemed insane, but the proof was right before him. The humans standing around the machine. Their glowing eyes, their altered bodies, were living proof of the power humanity had unlocked. "We've always been the underdogs, Ravzek," the leader continued, his voice quiet now, almost nostalgic. "But no more. The Emberlight has given us the strength we always deserved. And now, we're ready to take our place among the stars." Ravzek's heart sank. He knew that humanity had already passed the point of no return. There was no going back. The Emberlight had already changed them. And if it spread, as the leader had suggested, there would be no stopping it. "I came here to destroy you," Ravzek said, his voice thick with a mix of regret and disbelief. "But now, I understand. You've already won." The leader's eyes softened. "We haven't won yet, but you can help us. You don't have to be our enemy. Together, we can create a new future, one where the Emberlight isn't a curse, but a blessing for everyone." Ravzek stood there for a long moment, the weight of his decision pressing heavily on him. He had always seen himself as a warrior, a conqueror, but now he saw the truth. Humanity wasn't just another species to be defeated. They were a force of nature, and if he didn't adapt, he would be swept away by the tide of their evolution. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. The galaxy was changing, and whether he liked it or not, Ravzek was a part of that change. Recognition. "You're brave," the leader said, his voice now filled with amusement. "But you're also a fool. This isn't about survival anymore. It's about evolution. Humanity was never meant to be a puppet. The Emberlight is the key to our true destiny." Ravzek stood tall, trying to ignore the nagging sense of dread that continued to creep up his spine. "I didn't come here to be part of your evolution. I came here to conquer. But now, I see that I can't win this war." The leader smiled, and for the first time, Ravzek saw a flash of something more than just power in his eyes. "It's not about winning, Ravzek. It's about understanding. You're too blinded by your mission to see the truth. The Emberlight is the future of all sentient species. What's happening to humanity is just the beginning." Ravzek's mind raced. Was this truly what humanity had become? A species capable of reshaping the very fabric of the universe. The idea seemed insane, But the proof was right before him. The humans standing around the machine. Their glowing eyes, their altered bodies, were living proof of the power humanity had unlocked. "We've always been the underdogs, Ravzik," the leader continued, his voice quiet now, almost nostalgic. "But no more. The Emberlight has given us the strength we always deserved. And now we're ready to take our place among the stars." Ravzik's heart sank. He knew that humanity had already passed the point of no return. There was no going back. The Emberlight had already changed them, and if it spread, as the leader had suggested, there would be no stopping it. "I came here to destroy you," Ravzik said, his voice thick with a mix of regret and disbelief. "But now, I understand. You've already won." The leader's eyes softened. "We haven't won yet, but you can help us. You don't have to be our enemy. Together, we can create a new future, one where the Emberlight isn't a curse, but a blessing for everyone." Ravzik stood there for a long moment, the weight of his decision pressing heavily on him. He had always seen himself as a warrior, a conqueror, but now he saw the truth. Humanity wasn't just another species to be defeated. They were a force of nature. And if he didn't adapt, he would be swept away by the tide of their evolution. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. The galaxy was changing. And whether he liked it or not, Ravzik was a part of that change. Ravzik stood still in the underground chamber, the hum of the machines surrounding him, as his mind struggled to process everything he had learned. The Emberlight was more than a weapon. It was the future of humanity, a new path forward that no one, not even the Droxans, could control. The leader of the humans, his glowing eyes now filled with quiet determination, stood before him. "Will you join us, Ravzik?" the human leader asked again, his voice calm but filled with an unmistakable power. "You have seen what we can do. You felt the energy of the Emberlight. You are not just an invader here. You're part of something much bigger. We don't have to be enemies." Ravzik's mind swirled. He had come to Earth to conquer, to prove the supremacy of the Droxans. He had been trained to view humanity as weak, as nothing more than a stepping stone to greater power. But now, standing in this room filled with humans who had evolved into something far beyond ordinary, Ravzik could feel a shift in his understanding. He had seen the power of the Emberlight firsthand, witnessed how it had transformed these humans into something different, something far more dangerous than he could have imagined. He had come to Earth with the goal of destroying them, but now he realized that humanity wasn't something to be wiped out. They were becoming the new rulers of the galaxy, and Ravzik was witnessing the birth of a new era. He looked at the leader, the power radiating from him, and took a deep breath. "I came here to end you," he said slowly, his voice heavy with regret. "But now, I see that I was wrong. I underestimated you. The Emberlight is not something to fear. It is something to embrace." The human leader nodded, a slight smile on his lips. "It's not just about power, Ravzik. It's about unity. Humanity was always fragmented, divided. But now, the Emberlight has given us a chance to come together, to evolve into something greater. Together, we can create a new future for the galaxy." Ravzik felt the weight of his decision. He had come to Earth with one purpose: to destroy. But now he saw that humanity had become more than just a species. They were becoming something else entirely, a force capable of changing the galaxy forever. And he couldn't stand in the way of that. "I don't know what the future holds," Ravzik admitted, "but I do know that I cannot continue to fight against you. The Emberlight has shown me that. I may have come here to conquer, but now I see the bigger picture." The leader's eyes shone brighter. "You're right. The Emberlight is more than just an evolution of our species. It's the dawn of a new age. We can unite the galaxy under one banner. And no one, not even the Droxans, will stand in our way." Ravzik felt the weight of his decision settle on his shoulders. He had always seen himself as a warrior, a conqueror, but now he had to become something else. a messenger, a bridge between the old ways and the new. You want me to join you, Radzig said, more to himself than to the leader. But how can I? I came here as an enemy. I've been trained to fight you, to destroy everything you stand for. The leader stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, yet strangely reassuring. You don't have to fight anymore, Radzig. The Ember Light is not about destruction. It's about creation. You can help us build this new future. You can be part of something greater than yourself. Radzig's claws flexed, and for a moment, he hesitated. He had always known that the universe was full of chaos and conflict. That strength came from overcoming opponents. But now, standing in the presence of this human leader, a man who had embraced the power of the Emberlight, Radzig saw the true strength of unity. It wasn't about fighting wars. It was about forging a new path forward, one where all species could rise together. I don't know if I'm ready for that, Radzig said quietly, his voice filled with uncertainty. You don't have to be, the leader replied. No one is born ready. We all evolve. But the first step is to accept that change is inevitable. The Emberlight has shown us that. And now we have the power to shape our future. Radzig nodded slowly. His mind was still reeling, but he could no longer deny the truth he had come to understand. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for something greater, a future where they could rise above the constraints that had once held them back. I came to Earth to destroy you, Radzig said, looking the leader in the eye. But now, I see that I can't. The leader smiled, and Radzig could see the weight of the transformation in his eyes. We're not asking you to fight for us, Radzig. We're asking you to fight with us. Together, we can create a galaxy where the Emberlight isn't just a weapon. It's a force of creation. Radzig stood there for a long moment, his mind spinning with the enormity of the decision before him. He had been an invader, a conqueror, but now he understood. This was no longer about fighting. It was about embracing the future. Humanity had unlocked something incredible, and Radzig was now a part of that. With a final glance at the glowing eyes of the human leader, Radzig made his decision. He was no longer an enemy. He was a part of something far bigger than himself, and together with humanity, they would shape the future of the galaxy. The Emberlight had changed everything.